In this video, I'm turning an old motorcycle trailer into a custom teardrop camper. Make sure to stick around to the end for a full cost breakdown.
Alright, so this is the trailer we're going to be starting with. It's just a little motorcycle trailer that I bought on Craigslist a while back for like 300 bucks. I'm going to take these little rails off, and so it's a nice flat surface to start with. Alright, after a whole lot of cutting and grinding, finally got all the metal taken off. Got the paint and dirt all ground down. Gonna go over it with some sandpaper, then give it a fresh coat of black paint. Got the black paint all done. It's all dry. Looking pretty good. Now I'm gonna start on the floor. Got my little plans here. Basically what it's gonna look like, I'm gonna have the floor come all the way out to here because it's only like 40 inches in between there, so I wanted it wider. So the floor is gonna come all the way out to the edge of the wheel wells, and then I'll like build it up and over the wheel well. Alright, I got my little cut list right there. Just gonna take some of those 2x2s and cut them out on the chop saw. And the floor frame is all done. Went pretty quick. Gotta put the plywood on and put the insulation in. Got the plywood on one side, so now I just got to take the insulation and cut it into strips to fit in between these studs. Alright, I've been fiddling with this floor, trying to get it to line up with everything the best I can, and now I'm gonna build the frame that goes over the wheel well, and then also start on the walls. Got my little drawing with all my measurements. Gonna cut some more 2x2s on the chop saw. first wall. Actually went together pretty easy. Now I just got to do it again on the other side. And there's the second wall. So I put one support beam in on the top to hold the two walls together. I think I'm gonna put the other 4 in on the flat section. Alright, I made this little wheel well box to go over this. Just gonna glue and screw that in. I plan on putting a USB port, like 12 volt USB charging port, like on the inside right here, so I'm gonna run the wires here before I close the wall up. Since I'm using 2 black wires for positive and negative, I just put a little piece of tape on one and then a little piece of tape on the other end so that I know when I go to hook it up that is the same wire on both ends. Alright, we got the second wall all insulated and plywood on the inside. I made another wheel well cover. This time I actually put some of the plywood on the inside to box it off. I should have done that over here. It'll just be harder to do it now that it's installed.
Try not to pay attention to how crooked these boards are. Alright, we got the wires running. I totally forgot about the wires for the fan, so I decided to just take these ones that I was going to use for this light and run it to the fan, and then I'm just going to get some more wires for the light right here. And then those other wires I routed along the edge and up there for the light that's going to go up there.
Got the roof all paneled and insulated. Got my wires for the lights coming out. We got both wheel well covers insulated, and I did the plywood on that one. Now I'm just taping up all the seams with aluminum foil tape to make sure everything is airtight. I got this flush trim router bit, so I can just cut this off flush with the bottom. Using this flush trim bit on the router just made everything so much easier. This was a strange angle and I couldn't really get the router to work, so I decided to just use my flush trim saw. Alright, we got all the plywood on the outside. I had to do some seams just because I didn't want to go back and buy more full sheets, so I figured it's okay just to have a couple seams. But now that we got all the plywood on, I'm gonna start on the bed platform in here. Gonna build a platform the same height as these for the bed to go on. Probably have like a little compartment over by the door that you can lift up and access the storage underneath the bed. Got the bed frame all done. It's wider than a full plywood, so I put this little divider so I could do a sheet to here, and then that little section is going to be where the trapdoor is to get to the storage. I added some construction adhesive to the back of the peel and stick tiles because they never really like to stick very well on their own. Got all the wood paneling done. It's looking really good. The little trap door over there. Alright, I got my battery box here. It's gonna go on the tongue. So I'm gonna use this metal that I took off
at the beginning to make a little mount and weld it onto the tongue right there. Alright, so I cut out this little plate, ground off the paint on the tongue. Got my little cheap Amazon stick welder. Just gonna weld it on from the bottom. Alright, we got it on. Let's just not look too closely at those welds. But it's strong. So now let's just hit it with some black paint. The electrical is actually pretty simple. You just take your positive wires and you cut them to length and strip the ends off. I think I'm going to change it and put some ring terminals on the end so I can remove them easier. But you just run each positive wire to each one of these positive terminals here that I'm doing. And then once you got all those in, you run your negative wires to the negative bus bar, which is this one right here. And then you just put your fuses in, the correct size fuse for each circuit, and you're all done. I'm using the lights I have to test my wires to make sure they're getting power. I have wires ran into the wall here, and here I'm just drilling a hole and fishing the wires out for the USB charging port I'm going to put here. Connecting the USB charge port was really easy as well. I just crimped on a few of these little connectors that fit on the back of the charge port, and then you just plug it in, the positive and negative. The charge port was deeper than my wall is thick, so I had to add this little 3/4 inch block to space it out so that there was enough depth in the wall. Got all the openings taped up so that when I cut it from the outside it doesn't blow out on the inside. I measured it all out so that they line up with the marks I made on the outside. I think I'm gonna switch up my plan and just put the last piece of plywood on and then fiberglass the whole thing and then cut out my openings for the door and window. I just feel like if I cut the holes first and then fiberglass, it'll be a lot harder and there'll be exposed insulation, and I feel like the resin will, melt it and stuff. And then I'd also have to account for the thickness of the fiberglass in the size of the hole I cut. And I just feel like it's going to be a lot harder and a lot more work. So I'm just going to cover up the last wall. I'm going to finish off this wall
and then fiberglass the whole thing, and then cut the door and window and vent roof vent holes. So yeah, it's almost time to start fiberglassing. I'm just gonna finish off this last wall. Alright, got the last wall on. I bondoed all the seams, and I filled all the nail holes with wood filler. Gave it all a nice sand with 150 grit. And now I'm gonna start the fiberglass. Got all my supplies for fiberglass in. Got the 1708 biaxial fiberglass mat, and then some polyester laminating resin. And then I also got some other like chop strand mat, and then just all the supplies to mix it up and apply it. I've never done fiberglass before, so wish me luck. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. I watched a few YouTube videos, so hopefully I do it right.
You know who made it.
Make sure you just follow the instructions on the bottle of resin for the amount of hardener to add. So first I coat the wood with the resin, and you let it dry for about 30 minutes to an hour until it gets tacky. And then you come back and you add more resin before you put the fiberglass on top, and then do another layer of resin on top of the fiberglass to soak it completely until it's translucent. It took a lot of resin to get it completely translucent, so I definitely have to order more to finish this. This process was very repetitive, so I'm not going to show the whole thing. I think you get the point. You cover the whole thing in fiberglass and put a bunch of resin all over it.
Alright, got the last piece of 1708 mat put on. Looks pretty good. I forgot to mention earlier that once you put all the resin on the fiberglass, you take one of these little grooved rollers and you roll all the fiberglass to get all the bubbles out. Kind of an important step because on the sides, you can't really see it, but there's some bubbles because I didn't roll it good enough. Because I bought this little pack of rollers that came with like a bigger one
and then the smaller one. And I used the big one on the first piece I did, and it worked really good. But then I didn't clean it after I was done, and the resin hardened in all the grooves, so I couldn't use it anymore. And then I started the sides, and I was trying to use this little one, and it wasn't working very good. And just lesson learned, because some bubbles are still on the sides. Of course, the most seen part of it has bubbles, but it is what it is. Live and learn. So now that the 1708 is all put on, I'm gonna move on to the chop strand mat, and you cover the whole thing with that as a final layer. So I'm gonna get started on that now. You wanna be sure to sand in between each coat to make sure the next coat bonds to the previous one. Alright, and the fiberglass is all finished. Came out pretty good. Got it all sanded down. The fiberglass turned out really nice, I think. The corners worked out pretty good, or the edges without rounding them over. They don't look too bad. Got my wires sticking out, all fiberglassed in. Next I'm gonna install these little threaded inserts. You just drill a hole and then screw them down into the hole. I'll probably glue them in with some epoxy, but I'm just gonna put those all over the bottom of the trailer so that I can attach it to the trailer. So I'm just gonna measure where the threaded inserts need to go so that they line up with the trailer itself, and then mark out where I need to drill on the bottom of the camper. Alright, I marked out all the holes I'm gonna drill. I got this little drill guide to make sure I drill at a 90-degree angle. Got the tape on the bit so I don't go too deep. Now I'm just gonna start drilling. Alright, now I'm gonna take the threaded inserts and put some 2-part epoxy on them, and then screw them down into the hole with the Allen wrench. Alright, I got all the threaded inserts installed. Ended up putting 18 of them all around the edges. Well, the front and back edge, and then they all go into studs that are running across the floor. I'm gonna use these 3/8, I think, bolts to bolt it from underneath the trailer. And there's gonna be these little bushings in between, like that. So I think that should be strong enough to hold it down to the trailer. I marked all the spots on the trailer that I need to drill holes, and I'm gonna drill the holes out. So I got these trailer stabilizer jacks. I'm gonna mount them. I got 2 of them. I'm gonna mount them up underneath the trailer on each corner so that they can stabilize these front corners. I took this plate from the metal that I took off at the beginning. I'm just gonna weld it right here, and then that'll be a good spot to mount the jack to. So I just gotta get my welder out and weld this plate on. I already ground the paint off where the welds are gonna go. All right, there we are. Got them both installed. Welds aren't pretty, but they're strong. That's all that matters. So now I'm just gonna clean them up. Just gonna clean them up with some mineral spirits and then spray them with some black spray paint. All right, I got my door here. I just traced it out on a piece of cardboard. I'm gonna cut that out for my template. Okay, gotta get it lined up.
You hold it, I'll cover. I'll trace.
Well, it looks like some of my floor panels fell off while the trailer was upside down. That sucks. Got the roof vent here. This is the interior trim ring. So I'm just gonna put this up on the roof and trace it for the outline to cut out.
This was actually a dumb idea. I had to cut the hole bigger because the trim ring was smaller than the actual fan itself, so just use the fan to mark out your hole. So I had to do this really strangely because there are wires for the roof vent fan that I didn't want to cut through, so I used my circular saw to just cut a very thin, just trying to cut through the thin plywood, and then I pried it up right here, and see those, they're the wires that I didn't want to cut, and then I took my jigsaw and went around making sure to not cut through those wires.
I got this Total Boat topside primer. It was pretty expensive, so hopefully I can get one full coat with the gallon. I got it all sanded down. Now I'm gonna wipe it down with mineral spirits.
So as you can see, I didn't cut out the window hole yet, but I already have it marked out, and so I didn't paint over those marks just so I know where to cut the hole. But I couldn't cut it out yet because I had to order a new window that might be a different size, so I just left it not painted so I could cut it out later.
Got my little RV window here. Cut out a cardboard template, kind of trace it onto the camper.
This window was just a little bit different size than the first one I got.
I got this RV seal repair tape. I'm gonna put it along the edge. And that just kind of gives it a nice sealed off border where the insulation was exposed. Alright, I got this Gorilla Glue spray adhesive. I'm going to try to use this to reattach the floor tiles. I'm going to be using this Duralux marine coating, black. I bought 2 gallons of it. I'm not sure, it only took 1 gallon of primer to cover that, so I might be able to save some money and take it back, but this stuff was only 60 bucks a gallon. For some reason black was like the most expensive, but better than Total Boat, which is like 120 a gallon.
there she is. Got 2 coats of black paint on her. It's looking pretty good. It's very glossy, very orange peely. Can still see all the imperfections of the fiberglass, but it is what it is. At least it's waterproof, very well protected. So now that I got the paint all done, it's time to start installing the window and door and the roof vent. Got the butyl tape here, gonna put it all around the edge of the door. I think you start at the middle down here and go all the way up and around in one continuous loop, and then you overlap at the bottom again. This little trim ring that I'm installing here is the reason I had to buy a new window. The first window I bought didn't come with one, so I didn't really have any way of installing it. I might still add it and just make my own trim ring now that I see how it works, but I decided to just buy a different one that had a trim ring included. Here I'm just soldering some extending wires onto the ones that I ran through the camper, because the wires on the roof vent were on the opposite side of where my wires were, so I'm just soldering some more wires on to connect to the roof vent. Alright, got the door, window, and roof vent all installed. They went in pretty easy. The door, I actually ended up using bolts and just bolted it all the way through and put a nut on the inside because there was no studs for these screws to go into, so I thought it'd just be better to use bolts that go all the way through. The window just uses this trim ring on the inside. There's still a bit of a gap, but it's really not that bad. The screws just go straight into the window. The window was actually a little harder to do than the door, and then the roof vent went real smooth.
I got them all siliconed, but I saved you the footage of that because I'm terrible at siliconing, so don't follow my lead. Now I'm starting to build a simple cabinet for the interior. Just a little tip, change out your jigsaw blade. I was literally cutting with a butter knife. These little desktop drum sanders are actually pretty cheap and useful. This cabinet is actually pretty simple to make. It's just 2 pieces of plywood cut to whatever size you want your cabinet to be. And then you cut the holes in the front for the openings and glue and screw the 2 pieces together. And then it goes up into the corner of your camper and makes a nice little cabinet. Split these in half because I couldn't get it in the camper, so I pre-installed some L brackets. I got these padded stick-on like headboard things I'm gonna put on the wall right here, but I need to trim it out because there's a little bit of room above and below, so I'm gonna see how much room I need to take up with the trim. Alright, got some cheap pine boards from Home Depot. Just gonna rip them down on the table saw to the size I need for my trim pieces. I needed some room to shove the extra wires up into, so I just cut a little square out with my multi-tool. You don't have to solder the wires together. There's plenty of other options to connect them. I just prefer soldering because it's nice and sleek and the heat shrink really protects the connections.
am pretty terrible at trim, so I'm not going to show you too in depth on how to do it. I mean, it's straightforward. It just takes a little bit of finesse and probably some know-how to make it look good. I cut this trim piece for around the door, but there's the bolts sticking out, so I just drilled some holes to line up with the bolts. Alright, so for the corners, the corner trim around the door, I glued these two of these blocks together, and then I cut out a cardboard template of the radius of the corner. Got the battery all cleaned up with the ring terminals, make it easier to remove it or change anything. And then I got a solar charge controller hooked up. You just got these wires you run to your solar panel, put it up on the roof, and then you're charging your batteries with solar. It's really simple to hook up. You just have your two wires that go to the battery, positive and negative, and then you have your wires that go to your solar panel, positive and negative, and that's it. Figured I'd just show you how the solar panel works. I got my little folding EcoFlow solar panel that came with my power pack. And you just take these cords out. You got your positive and negative. You plug them in, they just plug in real easy. And then you can see the solar is charging the battery. I added a little quick disconnect to the negative just so I can unplug it so that this screen doesn't kill the battery. You plug it in and the screen comes on. So I figure I'll just unplug it when I'm not using it. I attached the camper to the trailer with bolts. These like 3/8 bolts and these little rubber bushings. Got them all along the back and the front. And down the sides. So I think it's secured pretty good. You shake it, just shakes the whole trailer. I put the brake lights back on, put on these mountain and tree decals. They're kind of basic, but I think it helps break up the trailer a little bit instead of just all black. I think it looks pretty good. Got another decal coming in the mail that I'm gonna put on the back, but that's not gonna be here for like a month, so gotta wait on that. Got this little magnet so
so that when you open the door, magnets on there so it's not blowing around like crazy. Got a mattress and a fitted sheet for it. Put some tree decals in on the inside, kind of break up some of the wood. I painted the back wall black and added these 3D textured panels just to add some more design. Got a couple of these cargo nets for either side of the door for more storage. Got my little cubby to put my phone and keys and wallet in. I decided to paint the roof white with this specialized coating to help with the heat. And now it's finally time to take a look at the final results. So here's the cost breakdown of everything. Came out to $3,289, and that's for like everything, every last screw, bolt, paintbrush. So like some of it I still have left over. You know, I had to buy like a gallon of something and I only used a bit of it, but this is the total cost. I did some of the bigger things. The fiberglass materials were $640. The door and window were almost $500. Just all the different costs. And I guess a lot of money went into the disposable stuff that you use, and you know, like the paintbrushes and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, including the trailer cost, I paid $300 for it years and years ago, so like $3,500 all in for the whole camper. Alright, that's gonna do it for this video. Make sure you subscribe if you like this stuff, because I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers and I'm almost there, so it'd mean a lot if you could subscribe and support the channel. Gonna be doing a lot more cool projects, so hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave it in the comments if you would want to see me take this out camping sometime and test it out. But that'll do it for this one, so catch you next time. Peace.